The alien council roared with laughter as footage played of Earth's fleet of rusted ancient ships, until the humans revealed their secret armada of 800,000 cloaked dreadnoughts, and the chamber fell into stunned silence. It was the year 2450. Humanity had spread to the stars generations ago, joining the Galactic Alliance. But to most aliens, they were still a young, primitive species, barely worth acknowledging. Captain Johnny Bennett, a well-respected but unassuming human officer, sat stiffly in his seat as he endured the ridicule from the assembled alien delegates. The Alliance had convened an emergency strategy session about the aggressive expansion of the ruthless Nigan Empire. But the discussion kept getting derailed by the other species mocking Earth's concerns. Why should the Alliance waste resources defending such a weak race? Galen, the arrogant Nigan ambassador, smirked at Bennett. Earth's fleet is a joke, a child's collection of tin toys. When the Nigan armada reaches your system, your species will be enslaved in a matter of hours. Bennett gritted his teeth, resisting the urge to shoot back a response. Suddenly, a distress transmission from Earth cut through the arguing voices. The Nigan invasion fleet had just been detected, only a day's journey from human space. The enormous armada carried enough ships and soldiers to completely subjugate Earth. Chaos erupted in the council chamber. Earth pleaded for immediate military aid from the Alliance, but the other species refused, declaring that sending ships would just be a waste, that humans were doomed. As Galen gloated about Earth's imminent destruction, a sense of dread settled into Bennett's gut. The future of his entire species hung in the balance. In a last, desperate attempt, Bennett demanded the Alliance's support. When his plea fell on deaf ears, he played his final card. Bennett revealed the truth the Galactic Alliance never suspected. Earth had secretly constructed a fleet of 800,000 highly advanced stealth warships, hidden in the void of deep space. If the Nigans took Earth, humans would use this massive armada to overthrow their alien conquerors and go to war with the rest of the Alliance for refusing to help humanity in its darkest hour. Stunned silence gripped the council. Then pandemonium erupted. Some species reacted in anger, others in fear, realizing they had vastly underestimated what humans were capable of. Many wondered if Earth had deliberately hidden its true strength as part of some sinister plan. Only Galen was unfazed. "You almost had me going there, Captain," the Nigan smirked. "But I know a bluff when I hear one. When we enslave your people, you'll see how little your lies avail you." Bennett simply stood and marched out, knowing that words were over. He had to get back to Earth, had to lead the defense of his homeworld before it was too late. As his ship raced through the stars toward the looming invasion, a sense of crushing doubt crept into Bennett's thoughts. What if their hidden fleet wasn't enough to turn back the Nigans? What if he had just started a war with the entire galaxy? He shook his head. It didn't matter now. All that mattered was saving humanity from enslavement or extinction. Even if Earth had to fight the whole damned universe to do it. Bennett's ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace, the blue-green marble of Earth filling the view screen. His heart raced as he opened the secure comm channel. Admiral Shu's face flickered to life, her expression grave. "Captain Bennett, our fleet is ready," Shu said, her voice tight. "But there's a problem. Most of our ships are still unarmed, manned by fresh volunteers with barely any training." Bennett's stomach nodded. "How many can we field?" 100,000, give or take. It'll be a hell of a fight." Before Bennett could respond, proximity alarms blared. An all-too-familiar sneer filled the screen as Galen's hologram materialized on the bridge. "Captain Bennett," the Nigan smirked, "did you really think you could fool us? Our probes detected your little construction project in the Kuiper Belt. Your dreadnought armada is nothing but a bluff." Bennett fought to keep his face impassive, refusing to reveal Earth's true numbers. Galen's eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "We're going to destroy your last hope and broadcast it across the galaxy. I want everyone to see the look on your face when you realize you've lost." Anger surged in Bennett's veins. He leaned forward, his voice a low growl. "I look forward to seeing the shock on your face when we meet in battle." Galen's nostrils flared. He cut the transmission, his image dissolving into static. Bennett tightened fists, then opened a fleet-wide channel. "Attention all ships. This is Captain Bennett. The Nigeans are headed for our Kuiper Belt facility. Evacuate the space dock immediately and prepare for battle. This is it. Today, we fight for the survival of Earth and all humanity. Bennett out." Klaxons echoed through the fleet as the ragtag citizen navy scrambled to their stations. In the distance, the cloaked space dock shimmered and vanished, its crews racing to join the formation. Suddenly, a massive vortex split the void as the Nigean fleet tore out of hyperspace, a churning swarm of biomechanical monstrosities that blotted out the stars. On the lead dreadnought, Galen bared his teeth in anticipation, his sensors showing a mere 100,000 human defenders. Then, the Earth ships disappeared. Galen's triumphant grin faltered as the human vessels vanished from his scopes, cloaking fields rendering them invisible. The Nigean ships surged toward the apparently empty space dock, until a storm of missiles and energy beams materialized out of the void, slamming into the enemy fleet. Dozens of alien craft exploded, torn apart by the Ghost Fleet's ambush. Aboard the human command ship, Bennett watched with grim satisfaction as his ships faded in and out of their cloaks, striking and then disappearing before the Nigeans could lock on. Galen roared with frustration, unable to target the phantom vessels. "Fire! Fire everything!" he screamed, his fleet unleashing a hurricane of blind counterfire in all directions. For a moment, it seemed Earth's hit-and-run tactics were working. Bennett allowed himself a flicker of hope, until more Nigean reinforcements boiled out of hyperspace, flanking the human formation. The enemy ships launched swarms of seeker drones, the small craft homing in on the humans' energy signatures like sharks scenting blood. Robbed of the element of surprise, the Earth fleet found itself exposed and outgunned. Bennett gripped the arms of his command chair as his ship bucked and shuddered, alarms shrieking. Damage reports poured in, breached power cores, hull ruptures, failing life support. The tactical display lit up with distress beacons as escape pods fled the battered vessels. A cold dread settled in Bennett's gut as he watched the tide turn against them. The Nigean reinforcements were too much, their numbers overwhelming. Earth's last audacious attempt was failing. Humanity's homeworld would fall. Unless Bennett could pull one final trick, one last roll of the dice in this deadly game, the war for humanity's survival had only just begun, and Bennett swore he would see it through to the bitter end, regardless of the cost. Captain Bennett's voice rang out over the fleet-wide comm channel, his tone grim but resolute. "All ships, this is your final order. Overload your reactors and set collision courses for the largest Nigean vessels. Evacuate all personnel to escape pods immediately." The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity. Officers relayed commands, crews rushed to evacuation stations, and the ship's computer blared warnings about critical reactor levels. Bennett watched the tactical display as human vessels peeled away from formation, accelerating toward the Nigean fleet. "Godspeed," he muttered under his breath. The void of space lit up as dozens of human ships slammed into their targets. Antimatter explosions tore through Nigean hulls, ripping apart biomechanical armor and vaporizing entire sections of the alien vessels. On the Nigean command ship, Galen stumbled as the deck bucked beneath his feet. Klaxons shrieked and emergency lights bathed the bridge in an eerie red glow. "Status report!" Galen bellowed over the din. A subordinate's voice crackled through damaged speakers. "Multiple hull breaches. We're venting atmosphere on decks 3 through 7. Another explosion rocked the ship. Galen watched in disbelief as his mighty dreadnought spun out of formation, trailing a plume of debris and escaping gases. Meanwhile, Bennett's vessel, packed beyond capacity with crews from the sacrificed ships, engaged its hyperdrive. The stars elongated into streaks of light as they fled the carnage, leaving behind the chaos of the battlefield. In the days that followed, the galaxy reeled from the shocking turn of events. Species that had dismissed humans as weak now spoke of them in hushed, fearful tones. The Nigean Empire's aura of invincibility had been shattered. Galen stood before the Nagian High Command, his usual swagger replaced by a tense, defensive posture. The humans employed tactics we've never encountered before, he argued. Their technology was far more advanced than our intelligence suggested. The High Commander's eyes narrowed. You were outsmarted by a species you claimed was primitive. This failure has cost us dearly. Back on Earth, crowds thronged the streets as Bennett and his fellow survivors returned home. They were hailed as heroes, their names chanted by jubilant masses. But Bennett couldn't shake the dread that gnawed at his gut. He knew this was only the beginning. As his battered ship limped toward Earth, a priority message flashed on Bennett's personal console. The captain's brow furrowed as he read the encrypted transmission from an anonymous source within the Galactic Alliance. Multiple Alliance species have contacted the Nigians, Bennett read aloud, his voice tight. They're offering to help subjugate Earth in exchange for control of our planet. He pounded his fist on the console. Despite their exhaustion, Bennett and his officers began formulating plans to root out these traitors. They had to act fast before the Nigians could regroup. Just as Bennett was about to call a strategy meeting, another urgent transmission cut through the ship's comms. It was from a survey vessel in the Kuiper Belt. Captain Bennett, the excited voice reported. We've discovered something out here. It's incredible. Some kind of ancient megastructure. The tech is like nothing we've ever seen. Bennett leaned forward, his mind racing. Could this be the key to saving Earth? Or would it plunge them into an even deadlier conflict? Send me everything you have, Bennett ordered, and maintain radio silence. We can't let anyone else know about this, yet. As the data started streaming in, Bennett stared at the initial images of the massive alien construct drifting in the icy void. Whatever this Kuiper artifact was, he knew it would change everything. The real war for humanity's future was just beginning. Captain Bennett stared at the view screen, his eyes fixed on the battered escape pod drifting through space. The hull was scorched and dented, barely holding together after its desperate flight from the Kuiper Belt megastructure. Bring it in, Bennett ordered, his voice tight, and get a medical team to the hangar bay immediately. As the pod was tractored aboard, Bennett raced down to meet it. The hangar doors hissed open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Medics swarmed around the pod, cutting through the twisted metal to reach the lone occupant inside. Dr. Samantha Chen, lead scientist of the expedition team, stumbled out. Her face was pale and streaked with blood, her eyes wide with terror. Captain, she gasped, gripping Bennett's arm. We woke it up. We didn't mean to, but we woke it up. Easy, Doctor, Bennett said, steadying her. What happened out there? Chen shook her head, struggling to form words. The technology, it's beyond anything we've ever seen. We were studying the control nexus when suddenly everything lit up. The whole structure came to life. Bennett listened intently as Chen recounted the horrors they'd faced. Self-replicating drones swarming through the corridors, impenetrable force fields trapping them inside, the desperate battle to reach an escape pod. But that's not the worst of it, Chen continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. Before I got out, I saw something. Data streams, star charts. It was like the entire structure was orienting itself. Orienting itself for what? Bennett asked, dread settling in his stomach. Chen's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of awe and terror. I think it's some kind of beacon, and whatever built it is coming back. Before Bennett could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. He sprinted to the bridge, Chen hot on his heels. Report, Bennett barked as he burst onto the command deck. Massive energy spike from the Kuiper Belt, sir, his tactical officer responded. The megastructure, it's moving. On the main view screen, the impossible became reality. The colossal alien artifact, over 10,000 kilometers across, was accelerating towards the inner solar system. Its surface rippled and shifted, reconfiguring itself for some unknown purpose. My God, Chen breathed. It's not just a factory, it's a ship. Bennett's mind raced. They had inadvertently awakened an alien superweapon of unimaginable power. And now Earth faced not only the Nigean threat, but the return of an ancient, unknowable force. "Sound General Quarters," Bennett ordered, his voice steady, despite the fear clawing at his insides. "And get me a direct line to Earth Command. We need to make some decisions, and fast." As klaxons wailed and his crew scrambled to battle stations, Bennett stared at the approaching megastructure. Whatever came next, he knew humanity's fight for survival had entered a new, terrifying phase. Captain Bennett's eyes widened as the tactical display lit up with an energy signature unlike anything he'd ever seen. The massive alien vessel approached, dwarfing even the Nigean dreadnoughts. "All hands, this is Captain Bennett. Initiate emergency evacuation protocols. I repeat, all personnel evacuate immediately." His voice echoed through the comm channels as chaos erupted across the fleet. Shuttles launched from every available bay, racing towards the trapped ships within the megastructure. Bennett watched the evacuation unfold, his expression resolute. "Tactical status on our defensive line?" "Holding, sir, but barely. Our weapons aren't even scratching that thing's shields." The bridge rocked violently as another barrage from the alien vessel slammed into them. Sparks flew from overloaded consoles as the ship's structural integrity groaned under the assault. "Sir, we've lost the Intrepid and Valiant. The Dauntless is venting atmosphere." Bennett's mind raced. They needed time. He stabbed at his console, pulling up scans of the approaching behemoth. There, a fluctuation near the aft thrusters. "All ships, concentrate fire on grid sector A7. Pour everything you've got into it." The remnants of Earth's fleet responded, a desperate fusillade of energy beams and missiles converging on a single point. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blinding flash erupted from the alien vessel's stern. It lurched, veering off its original course. A cheer went up on the bridge, cut short as new contacts flooded the sensors. Thousands of small, sleek craft poured from the alien dreadnought. "Interceptors incoming. All fighters engage." Bennett watched helplessly as Earth's squadrons were overwhelmed. The alien drones moved with impossible precision, adapting to each tactic faster than the human pilots could react. "Sir, we're detecting boarding parties entering the megastructure." Bennett closed his eyes, knowing what had to be done. He opened a fleet-wide channel. "This is Captain Bennett. All remaining personnel, abandon ship immediately. Repeat, abandon ship." As the last shuttles fled the doomed fleet, Bennett input the final commands. The warp cores of every surviving Earth vessel began to overload, building to critical mass. "Plot a blind jump, collision course with the alien dreadnought." The helmsman looked back, his face pale. "Sir, that's suicide." Bennett nodded grimly. "I know, but we're buying time for those shuttles to escape. Now do it." Space twisted around them as the battered Earth ships made their final jump. Bennett braced himself as they emerged, hurtling towards the massive alien vessel. The bridge crew worked frantically, maximizing the impact of their audacious attempt. Bennett watched the alien ship grow larger on the console, filling his vision. "It's been an honor serving with you all," he said quietly. Then, in a blinding flash, the overloading warp cores detonated. The resulting antimatter explosion tore through the weakened shields of the alien dreadnought, ripping massive holes in its hull. In the aftermath, a handful of Earth shuttles slipped away from the chaos, carrying the last survivors and whatever data they'd managed to salvage. They raced towards the relative safety of Earth's orbital defenses, leaving behind the shattered remains of humanity's fleet and the damaged but still functional alien megastructure. As the shuttles prepared to jump to safety, the occupants stared out at the cosmic battlefield. The true nature of the ancient race that built the megastructure remained a mystery. But one thing was certain: humanity's struggle for survival had entered a new and terrifying phase. The last echoes of Galen's transmission faded, leaving the war room in stunned silence. Admiral Hayes stood at the head of the table, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of Earth's orbital defenses. The gathered military leaders and scientists exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of humanity's fate pressing down on their shoulders. Hayes cleared his throat. We've heard the options. Now we need to decide. Dr. Samantha Chen, still bearing the physical and mental scars from her encounter with the megastructure, spoke up. Admiral, attempting communication is futile. The Omnicans have already shown their intentions. We'd be wasting precious time. General Zhao, his uniform crisp despite the chaos of recent events, leaned forward. Then we unite with the Nigeans. It's our only chance at... No, interrupted Commander Rodriguez, smacking his palm on the table. Have you forgotten what they did to us? What they plan to do to Earth? We can't trust them. Hayes raised a hand, silencing the brewing argument. What about infiltrating the megastructure again? Dr. Chen, you've been inside. Is it possible? Chen's eyes darted nervously. Possible? Yes, but the odds of success are minimal. We barely escaped last time, and that was before it was fully awakened. The room erupted into heated debate. Voices overlapped, each person arguing for their preferred course of action. Hayes watched silently, his mind racing through the implications of each choice. Suddenly, a young lieutenant burst into the room, face pale. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching the outer solar system. It's them, the Omnicans. The chamber fell silent once more. Hayes straightened, his decision made. We don't have time for half measures or fool's errands. Get me a secure line to Galen. We're going to build that weapon. Hours later, Hayes stood in the newly christened Project Prometheus lab. Engineers and scientists scurried about, translating Galen's instructions into real-world schematics. At the center of it all stood a device that defied conventional physics, a swirling vortex of energy contained within an impossibly intricate lattice of exotic materials. Dr. Chen approached, her tablet displaying a constant stream of data. Admiral, we're making progress, but there's so much we don't understand. The power requirements alone are staggering, and if we make even the slightest mistake... Hayes nodded grimly. I know the risks, Doctor, but it's our only shot. A tremor shook the station. Alarms blared as a voice came over the intercom. Alert! Omnican Vanguard has breached Mars orbit. All personnel to battle stations. Hayes rushed to the command center, arriving just in time to see the main view screen light up with unimaginable devastation. The Omnican fleet moved with terrifying precision, their weapons carving through Earth's outer defenses, like they weren't even there. Status report, Hayes barked. Sir, we've lost 60% of our orbital platforms. The lunar base is gone. They're not even slowing down. Hayes watched as humanity's last line of defense crumbled before the onslaught. He keyed his comm. Dr. Chen, we're out of time. Is the weapon ready? Admiral, we need more time. We haven't even begun to test. There is no more time. Hayes cut her off. It's now or never. Initiate the firing sequence. As Chen's team scrambled to comply, Hayes turned back to the view screen. The Omnican armada loomed ever closer, Earth's doom seeming all but certain. In that moment, Hayes understood the true meaning of Captain Bennett's sacrifice. Sometimes, the only path forward was to take the greatest risk of all. May God have mercy on us all, Hayes whispered as the experimental weapon hummed to life, its energies building to a crescendo that would determine the fate of humanity. The experimental weapon hummed to life, its energies building to a crescendo that would determine the fate of humanity. But as the seconds ticked by, nothing happened. The Omnican fleet continued its relentless advance. It's not enough, Dr. Chen whispered, her voice barely audible over the alarms. We need more power, more exotic materials. It's hopeless. Admiral Hayes stared at the view screen, watching Earth's defenses crumble. He turned to his assembled staff, his eyes hard. We have one option left. We go to the source. Hours later, a sleek stealth ship pierced the void of space, carrying Earth's last hope. Former Admiral Malkovich stood at the helm, his weathered face illuminated by the eerie glow of stolen Nigean tech. Behind him, a team of Earth's most elite operatives checked their gear, faces grim. We're approaching the outer hull, Malkovich announced, activating cloaking field. The ship shimmered, becoming nearly invisible, as it closed in on the colossal Omnican megastructure. Malkovich's hands danced across the controls, guiding them through a maze of automated defenses. A sudden impact rocked the ship. Alarms blared as security drones swarmed around them, their energy weapons leaving scorch marks on the hull. "Harrison Lee, man the point defense turrets!" Malkovich barked. "The rest of you, suit up. We're going in hot." The ship bucked and weaved as Harrison and Lee returned fire. Explosions blossomed in the void as drones were picked off one by one, but more kept coming. "Breaching point ahead," Malkovich called out. "Brace for impact." The ship slammed into the megastructure's hull, its reinforced prow tearing through layers of alien alloys. As the dust settled, Malkovich turned to his team. "Move out. We don't have much time." They poured out of the ship, immediately engaging waves of security drones. Plasma bolts filled the air as the humans fought their way deeper into the structure. One by one, Malkovich watched his team fall. "Sir!" a voice crackled over the comm. "We found an access point to the inner chambers!" Malkovich sprinted towards the voice, diving through a shimmering portal just as another wave of drones rounded the corner. He found himself in a realm beyond comprehension. Impossible geometries stretched in every direction. Planets hung suspended in the void, their surfaces writhing with alien life. Energy storms raged, tearing holes in the fabric of space-time itself. "My God," Malkovich breathed, "what is this place?" A familiar voice cut through his awe. "The heart of the beast, old friend." Malkovich spun around, coming face to face with a ghost. "Bennett, but how?" Captain Johnny Bennett stood before him, battered but very much alive. "No time to explain. We need to move. I know the way to the core." As they navigated the mind-bending landscape, Bennett filled Malkovich in on his miraculous survival and the intel he'd gathered. They reached a massive spherical chamber, its center dominated by a churning singularity of impossible size. "There," Bennett pointed. "That's our target." Malkovich's team sprang into action, setting up the wormhole bomb and beginning the power transfer process. The singularity's energy flowed into the device, building to levels that defied human comprehension. Suddenly, alien klaxons shattered the air. The Omnicans had detected them. "We're out of time," Malkovich shouted. "Bennett, finish the sequence. I'll hold them off." As Bennett worked feverishly to complete the power cycle, Malkovich and his remaining team formed a defensive perimeter. Waves of Omnican guardians poured into the chamber, their weapons unleashing devastation beyond imagining. Malkovich watched as his soldiers fell one by one, their sacrifice buying precious seconds. He turned to Bennett, seeing the same grim understanding in the other man's eyes. "It's armed," Bennett said quietly, "but someone needs to stay behind to detonate it." Malkovich nodded, the weight of galaxies on his shoulders. "Then let's give these bastards something to remember us by." Malkovich and Bennett stood back to back, their weapons blazing as waves of Omnican guardians poured into the chamber. The air crackled with energy bolts and the acrid smell of ozone. "Second wave incoming," Bennett shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. "They're using a pincer formation." Malkovich nodded, adjusting his aim. "Copy that. Team Alpha, reinforce the left flank." The human strike force responded with practiced efficiency, shifting their positions to counter the new threat. Bennett's intel proved invaluable, allowing them to anticipate and counter each Omnican tactic. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the din. "Surrender now, humans. Your struggle is futile." Malkovich's blood ran cold as he saw Galen striding into view, flanked by a contingent of Nigan soldiers. The once captured commander's eyes glowed with an unnatural light, his movements fluid yet somehow wrong. "Galen?" Bennett called out, shock evident in his voice. "What have they done to you?" The Nigan's face twisted into a cruel smile. "They've shown me the truth. You are a plague upon the galaxy, one that must be excised." With a gesture from Galen, his Nigan forces opened fire. The human team found themselves caught in a deadly crossfire, Omnican sentries on one side and their former allies on the other. We can't hold this position, Malkovich shouted, ducking behind a fallen pillar. Bennett, take the bomb team and get to the singularity. I'll deal with Galen. Bennett hesitated for a moment, then nodded grimly. Good luck, old friend. As Bennett led his team deeper into the megastructure, Malkovich charged towards Galen. The two commanders clashed in a furious melee, their weapons forgotten as they grappled amidst the chaos. Malkovich landed a solid blow, sending Galen reeling. Fight it, damn you, this isn't you. For a moment, something flickered in Galen's eyes. Then, to Malkovich's shock, the Nigean grinned. You're right, it isn't. Before Malkovich could react, Galen executed a lightning-fast maneuver, disarming him and pinning him to the ground. I've been playing you from the start, human. Malkovich watched helplessly as Galen sprinted towards the singularity chamber. He struggled to his feet, but a stun bolt from a Nigean soldier sent him crashing back down. In the heart of the megastructure, Bennett and his team worked feverishly to siphon power from the cosmic singularity. The air thrummed with barely contained energy, making their hair stand on end. Almost there, one of the technicians reported. We just need a few more... The words died in his throat as Galen burst into the chamber, his eyes wild with fanatical purpose. Step away from the device! Bennett raised his weapon, but Galen was faster. A burst of energy struck the captain, sending him sprawling. The Nigean commander strode to a nearby control panel, his fingers dancing across alien symbols. What are you doing? Bennett groaned, struggling to stand. Galen didn't even look up. Saving the galaxy from your kind. The Omnicans showed me the truth. Humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to spread beyond your world. Alarms blared as the facility's power systems began to overload. Bennett watched in horror as readouts showed an apocalyptic surge building, one that would vaporize Earth itself. You're insane! Bennett shouted, lunging for Galen. The two grappled briefly before Bennett managed to break free. He sprinted for the wormhole bomb, praying it had absorbed enough energy to function. Everyone out, he ordered, hefting the device. Get to the shuttles. As they fled, the megastructure shuddered violently. Massive conduits ruptured, spewing torrents of indescribable energies. Bennett and his team barely made it to their shuttles as a colossal shockwave erupted from the facility's core. Through the view screen, Bennett watched as the blast consumed Galen, the Nigean forces, and countless Omnican constructs. But there was no time for relief. The wormhole bomb had activated prematurely. A yawning tear in space-time bloomed before them, rapidly expanding into a monstrous singularity. Bennett's mind raced as he realized the horrifying truth. They'd created a black hole that would devour Earth and the entire solar system. All units, scatter, Bennett barked into the comm. Find shelter at the nearest outposts. I'll handle this. Ignoring the protests of his crew, Bennett plotted a course straight for the singularity's maw. He pushed his shuttle's warp drive past all safety limits, the engines screaming in protest. As he plunged into the cosmic maelstrom, Bennett's world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of fractured reality. Time and space warped around him, the very fabric of the universe twisting into impossible shapes. Through it all, Bennett clung to the controls, forcing his craft deeper into the singularity's heart. With a final, titanic effort, he triggered the warp core's overload sequence. The resulting detonation sent shockwaves through the very foundations of reality. Bennett felt himself stretched and compressed, shattered and reformed countless times in the span of a heartbeat. When the chaos finally subsided, Bennett found himself suspended in a realm beyond human comprehension. The black hole had collapsed, leaving behind a shimmering portal to some distant alien cosmos. Earth was safe for now, but as Bennett gazed into the unknowable vastness beyond the portal, he knew the war was a long way to go. Somewhere out there, the true architects of humanity's suffering waited, and they would not rest until Earth was... Captain Johnny Bennett's eyes widened as he stared out the cracked viewport of his battered shuttle. The fabric of reality itself seemed to twist and contort around him, a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and shapes that defied human comprehension. His vessel drifted aimlessly through this cosmic maelstrom, systems sputtering and alarms blaring. Computer, status report, Bennett barked, his hands flying across the flickering control panels. Multiple systems compromised, the AI responded, its voice distorted. Hull integrity at 62%, life support stable, propulsion offline, navigation, unable to compute current location. Bennett gritted his teeth. He'd survived the collapse of the Omnican megastructure, only to find himself trapped in some kind of interdimensional limbo. The laws of physics here were more suggestion than rule. As he worked to stabilize his craft, Bennett's attention was drawn to the sensor readouts. Faint traces of exotic energy permeated the void around him, pulsing with an alien rhythm. He recognized the signatures from stolen Omnican data. This was no natural phenomenon. It's a highway, Bennett muttered, realization dawning. A cosmic shortcut for their armada. He diverted power to the long-range scanners, searching for any sign of a way out. Instead, what he found chilled him to the bone. A distant signal, growing stronger by the second. Complex, structured data, unlike anything in nature. No, Bennett whispered, his face pale. Not again. The void before him shimmered and writhed. Massive shapes began to coalesce out of the quantum foam, angular and alien. Continent-sized war factories dripping with weapons beyond human imagining. Countless smaller vessels swarmed around them like angry insects. Bennett's hands flew across the controls, deploying sensor drones to map the emerging threat. The readings were off the charts, surpassing even the first Omnican invasion force. I've got to warn Earth, he growled, activating the quantum comm array, but the message refused to transmit, garbled by the cosmic interference surrounding him. As Bennett struggled with the communication systems, his sensors picked up an anomalous reading. Another vessel, adrift in the chaos, human in origin. That's impossible, Bennett muttered, zooming in on the signal. His blood ran cold as he recognized the energy signature of the craft's occupant. Galen, he spat, memories of the Nigean's betrayal flooding back. Bennett's mind raced. The turncoat might have vital intelligence about the Omnican threat. But could he be trusted? With Earth's survival hanging in the balance, Bennett realized he had no choice. He had to take the risk. Diverting what little power remained to the maneuvering thrusters, Bennett guided his crippled shuttle towards Galen's vessel. All around him, the Omnican armada continued to materialize, their weapons already charging. Time was running out. Captain Bennett's fingers danced across the flickering control panel, his eyes darting between the sensor readouts and the looming shape of Galen's battered vessel. The void around them pulsed with otherworldly energies, reality itself twisting into impossible shapes. Computer, initiate emergency docking procedures, Bennett ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. The AI's response came garbled through static. Warning. Structural integrity of target vessel compromised. Docking carries significant risk. Bennett gritted his teeth. Override safety protocols. Execute docking sequence now. With a grinding screech of protesting metal, the two ships locked together. Bennett sealed his suit, equalizing pressure before forcing open the airlock. The stench of ozone and something far worse assaulted his nostrils as he stepped into Galen's ship. Emergency lights pulsed weakly, casting eerie shadows across the ravaged interior. Bennett moved cautiously, weapon drawn, until he reached the bridge. What he saw there froze the blood in his veins. Galen lay splayed across the command chair, his body a horrific fusion of flesh and alien machinery. Silvery tendrils snaked beneath his skin, pulsing with sickly light. One eye had been replaced by a cluster of sensor arrays, while his limbs terminated in grotesque cybernetic appendages. Bennett, Galen rasped, his voice barely human. You decame. Bennett approached warily. What happened to you? Galen's remaining eye focused on Bennett with agonizing effort. Omnicans captured me, experimenting on all life forms. This is their plan for us all. As Galen spoke, a tendril on his arm twitched. Before Bennett could react, it lashed out, piercing his suit and burrowing into his flesh. Bennett cried out in pain as information flooded his mind. Schematics, equations, horrifying glimpses of alien labs where countless species were dismantled and rebuilt. "The transitway," Galen wheezed. "Its weakness in the harmonics. I tried to disrupt it. Failed. You must finish it." Bennett staggered, overwhelmed by the influx of data. He saw the plan Galen had devised, the subspace disruptor that could tear apart the very fabric of this cosmic highway. And he understood the cost. "There has to be another way," Bennett argued, even as his hands moved to the nearby console, fingers flying across alien controls. Galen's cyborg body spasmed. "No time. Armada. Coming. Save Earth. Save everyone." Outside, the void shimmered as titanic shapes began to coalesce. The Omnican invasion force had arrived in all its terrifying glory. Bennett's shuttle computer chimed an alarm. Weapons were powering up, locked onto their position. With a final pained look at Galen, Bennett made his choice. He initiated the integration sequence, merging what remained of his systems with Galen's fractured data core. The ship groaned around them as power surged through jury-rigged conduits. "Forgive me," Bennett whispered to Galen, to Earth, to the universe itself. He activated the subspace modulator. Reality screamed. Waves of psionic energy exploded outward, rippling through the transitway in ever-increasing arcs. The Omnican ships, caught in mid-materialization, twisted and warped as the very laws of physics turned against them. Bennett watched in awe and terror as planet-sized vessels crumpled like tin cans, crushed by forces beyond comprehension. His own ship began to disintegrate, hull plates tearing away into the maelstrom. Bennett's body felt both heavy as lead and lighter than air, his atoms vibrating in sympathy with the cosmic destruction he had unleashed. Through a rapidly widening tear in space-time, Bennett caught a glimpse of Earth, blue and beautiful and blessedly intact. A smile touched his lips as the void claimed him, molecule by molecule. In that final instant of existence, Captain Johnny Bennett knew peace. Humanity would endure. The future, with all its infinite possibilities, belonged to them now. And then...
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.